You're listening to Civic Media. You can tune into any of our live shows on any radio station across the state with the Civic Media app. Find us in your phone's app store and listen anytime, anywhere. This is your WLAK Daily News Roundup for Lake Air, 107.5 FM and 1260 AM in Amory.
For WLAK News, I'm James Kelly. Barron County officials gathered for a groundbreaking ceremony on a new welcome center on Monday morning. Representatives from the Pioneer Village Museum say the project on Highway W has been years in the making, and they've raised about $1.4 million of their $2 million goal. When completed, the facility will house the Barron County Tourism Information Center, the Blue Hills Genealogical Society's resources, and the Pioneer Village Museum's administrative offices. Organization officials say they're still accepting donations for the project. Months after its closure, Northland College in Ashland has sold its baseball and softball fields. According to a WPR report, the college has sold a total of nearly $1.5 million worth of its real estate assets, including the sale of the President's House in July. The baseball and softball fields, along with their indoor practice and storage facility, were sold to Chequamegon Bay Friends of the Fields, a nonprofit organization which intends to use the fields for youth sports leagues. College officials say they're still hoping to find a single buyer for the whole campus. With deer hunting seasons opening across the state, the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources is reminding hunters to test their deer for chronic wasting disease. Hunters have a variety of options to test for the disease, including self-service kiosks, using meat processors that can assist with sampling, arranging an appointment with the DNR, or by doing it themselves at home or in the field. Hunters should also be aware of counties with baiting and feeding bans that have been triggered by positive chronic wasting disease tests. A pair of Republican state lawmakers are proposing legislation to promote community solar energy programs across the state. The legislation has been proposed in previous sessions but never gained enough support to move forward. If passed into law, it would allow local municipalities to approve small-scale solar energy projects rather than requiring approval by the Public Service Commission. The lawmakers expect to gain bipartisan support for the measure this session, and Governor Tony Evers has expressed support for expanding solar energy use. The city of Spooner will apply for grant funding through the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources to treat trees infected by the emerald ash borer. The invasive beetle has spread rapidly across the northwest region over recent years, with experts predicting they could eventually kill 99% of the ash trees in the state. The grant funding will be used to treat 100 trees, replace 30 other trees, and remove 30 more. City officials also plan to share information on treating the invasive beetles with property owners so they can do it themselves. Workers at the University of Minnesota Duluth have ended their strike after the statewide union reached a tentative deal with the university system. The agreement was approved on Friday and includes a 3.5% pay increase in the first 2 years and a 3% increase in the final year. The two sides have been negotiating the contract since March, and their previous contract ended on June 30th. The strike, which began last Tuesday, involved around 1,400 university workers, including custodial, maintenance, and food service workers. The Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources will be holding free open houses at fish spawning facilities and fish hatcheries over the next few weeks. According to a press release, the free open houses are meant to give residents a chance to learn how the facilities help sustain the state's fish population up close. The first open house will be held at the Governor Tommy G. Thompson Fish Hatchery in Spooner on September 27th at 10 a.m. Additional details on the events are available on the Department of Natural Resources website. Northwood Technical College and Impact 7 held a groundbreaking ceremony and ribbon cutting for two housing projects last week. The projects were made possible through the Housing Opportunity and Mobile Education Solutions Initiative program as part of an effort to combine affordable housing with access to mobile workforce training labs operated by Northwood Technical College. The groundbreaking was held for the Trailview Cottages development in Hayward, and the ribbon-cutting ceremony was held for Maplewood Cottages in St. Croix Falls. State Senator Kelda Royce has officially announced she will join the growing Democratic primary field for governor in the 2026 election. Royce is the fourth Democrat to enter the race after Governor Tony Evers announced he would not seek a third term, joining Lieutenant Governor Sarah Rodriguez, Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley, and American Family Field vendor Ryan Sternad. Washington County Executive Josh Shillman and New Berlin businessman Bill Berrien are the only two Republicans to officially enter the race so far. Democratic state lawmakers are circulating a proposed bill that would allow Wisconsin residents struggling with suicidal thoughts to add themselves to a do not sell list for firearms. The legislation is meant to allow those individuals to voluntarily give up access to firearms if they feel it is unsafe for them to have one. Research shows suicide attempts that do not involve a firearm are rarely fatal, but are nearly always fatal when they do. People who add themselves to the list could later apply to be removed from the database after a waiting period. For WLAK News, I'm James Kelly.
Brewers baseball tonight. Hi, I'm Mike Clemens with sports. The Brewers open a 3-game series tonight against the Los Angeles Angels at American Family Field. Milwaukee with a 5-game lead over the Cubs in the NL Central. The Angels are in last place in the American League West, 13 games behind the Mariners. NFL. Matt LaFleur says the Packers' 10 penalties last Thursday night were far too many.
We went into the game. We knew that the penalties were going to be a big part of the game, and we had far too many. So obviously the first drive, it negated a touchdown, and then we had pre-snap penalties. You don't want any of those. We had a couple pre-snap penalties. We had a couple penalties on special teams that really played a big impact on field position.
The Packers play the Browns in Cleveland on Sunday. The Minnesota Vikings will be without their quarterback, J.J. McCarthy, the next 2 to 4 weeks. McCarthy suffering a high ankle sprain during their loss to the Falcons on Sunday night. Carson Wentz will take over at quarterback. With Sports, I'm Mike Clemens.
On your entertainment beat, I'm Pete Schwaba. The 77th Emmy Awards are in the books, and there was big news from the event. Probably the biggest story was HBO's The Pit winning Outstanding Drama Series. Star of the show, Noah Wyle, also took home a Best Actor award, and The Pit's Catherine Lanasa won Best Supporting Actress. Another big story of the night was the Netflix show Adolescence, which won 6 Emmy Awards, 3 of which went to Stephen Graham for acting, writing, and producing. Apple TV's The Studio won 4 Emmys, including Best Comedy Series. Britt Lower of Apple TV's Severance got her first Emmy off her first nomination and took home the Best Actress in a Drama Series. Jean Smart took home her 4th Emmy for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy Series for her role on Hacks. Smart has picked up a total of 14 Emmy nominations over her impressive career. 15-year-old Owen Cooper became the youngest recipient ever for his role in Adolescence. He was excellent. Rainn Wilson appeared on the Last Laugh podcast last week and said he felt that at times the show The Office went too far with racial and sexist jokes. Wilson, who played Dwight Schrute, said they could never get away with some of the jokes now. Wilson also said that NBC ultimately passed on a spinoff which would have starred the Dwight Schrute character and would have been set on his character's beat farm. The show would have been called The Farm. News from the Emmys, Stephen Colbert presented the Best Lead Actor in a Comedy Series. Beforehand, Colbert jokingly asked when he got behind the mic if anyone was hiring. Colbert will exit The Late Show in May of 2026. Colbert also joked that he brought his resume and showed the crowd his old headshot. The Late Show host was visibly moved when the crowd started chanting Stephen. Great guy. And by the way, Best Lead Actor in a Comedy Series went to Seth Rogen for The Studio. If this past weekend box office earnings are any indication, anime has completely arrived. Demon Slayer Infinity Castle found itself at the top of the box office with a $70 million opening weekend. Its opening day take of $33 million was the highest opening ever for an anime film. Last week's number 1 film, The Conjuring Last Rites, held off 3 challengers for the number 2 spot and a take of $26 million. The 3 new releases include Downton Abbey, which brought in $18 million big ones in its first week of release to finish at number 3. The Stephen King-inspired The Long Walk pulled in $11.5 million over the weekend. The film is based on King's first novel of the same title. And in 5th place was sort of a new release, or more accurately, a new re-release, as Toy Story brought in over $3 million on over 200 screens, giving it a massive haul of $195 million, dating back about 30 years. For more showbiz fun, tune into Nightlight with me, Pete Schwaba, weeknights from 6 to 8 p.m. on the Civic Media Radio Network.
We could catch an isolated shower or a thunderstorm today. Otherwise, mostly sunny with a high in the mid to upper 80s this afternoon. Tonight, partly cloudy, some fog late tonight. Our low in the low to mid 60s. Tomorrow, scattered showers, thunderstorms with a high right around 85. I'm meteorologist Sean Cable. Currently, it is 66.
That's your WLAK Daily News Roundup from Civic Media. Subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you find your podcasts. Find more news at lakeair.radio. The national news cycle never stops, but it can be hard to find news about your local community. Civic Media is dedicated to providing quality local and state news coverage across Wisconsin. With the Civic Media app, you can get notifications about local stories that matter to you and your community. Find the free Civic Media app in your phone's app store and choose notifications from the menu to tell us what kind of news you want to hear about.